So I just wanted to take a quick second to introduce them. The only one that's not up here, and I'm not counting Andrew, who's slowly walking up here, but Siobhan you just heard of, heard from. So Siobhan's on our leadership team. Andrew's going to be walking up here in a second, and he's on our leadership team. And then these other fine folks are all on our leadership team. And so we have Chris serving in Brooklyn. Say hi, Chris. We have Jess serving in Queens. Andrew serving in West Milford. Mel serving on the island. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's what I just said. Yeah. Long Island. Nick now serving at our Metro District office. Nick just took a role with the district office. So he's everybody's boss now. I'm just kidding. He's so mad. He's so mad that I just said that probably. And then Ashley, who helped Mel lead worship earlier. Ashley serving down in South Jersey. I serve in Rockland County, like 10 or 15 minutes away from the former Nyack College.
Is this on?
Wow, that was sorry. Yeah, I got to stop saying that. But sometimes that's the only people know where Rockland County is.
Is this on?
Andrew?
I don't know if it's on.
I don't know. What
is it on? You guys can hear me? Thank you. I'm just not talking loud enough. For the record, you asked me to bring the coffee. I made no demands.
Well,
I heard all of that.
But I can read your mind.
What's that?
I can read your mind, though. So.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, in our next session.
It's at the end of this session, I think. Okay, so we're going to touch on healthy leadership, right? That's session 2. I've got these guys. I thought about asking them to add up all their years of worship leadership so we could say, but we didn't do that in time. But maybe like the first time you guys chime in, you could say how long you've been leading worship in any capacity. So it doesn't have to be like at your current role, but how long. Because there are decades and decades of experience on the stage. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing from them. One of the first things we want to jump into is building this idea of building and maintaining credibility and trust. So building and maintaining credibility and trust within our teams. How many people know trust doesn't happen overnight? And at the same time, you can build it rather quickly. Like, don't get discouraged if you're new at your church or new in your role and you think, oh, I need 10 years before anybody trusts me. It doesn't take that long. And there's different seasons. I've been at my church for coming up on 17 years, leading worship at Risen King. But I can tell you there's a few people on the team from when I was first there 17 years ago. So even as you add more team members, the role of the leader is to continually build trust and credibility with your entire team. And so we're going to jump into that. I want to hear from these guys, some of their thoughts around building and maintaining credibility and trust, some of their experiences, maybe stuff that went well, didn't go so well, some tips and tricks, some practical things that they've picked up along the way. And so I'm going to kick it off. I don't know who's answering first, so I'm not going to call a name. So you guys got to be greedy and just jump in right away. But share with us some of your experiences around building credibility and trust with your team.
Can I be greedy?
Yeah.
Okay. So I insinuated that Siobhan stole my thunder, so now I'm gonna come try to take it back. So one of the things she mentioned when I was thinking about credibility and trust, what I wanted to share was the aspect of asking your team, what's God doing in the space? I'm going to be honest, I didn't come up with this. I actually benefit from Ashley on this because she instilled it in our team. But it creates an environment into your team in which you're doing multiple things. One, you're including them in the assessment process. So like you're empowering them to lead, but then you're also allowing them to step into their spiritual giftedness to like listen. And like, so you're teaching them spiritual disciplines even within that simple exercise of asking the question, what do you see God doing in this space right now? And so at our church where we served at, they had two services. And so that question would take place in between the services. And so sometimes what you saw at the 11 o'clock service might be different than the 9 because of creating a atmosphere of credibility and trust where maybe a team member said, hey, I'm really sensing the Lord's maybe telling us to do this, or I'm sensing in the congregation this. And that's a way, like when you as a leader say to one of your other team members and leaders, like, I affirm that, and it's scriptural and it's affirming. Like, I think that right there creates credibility and trust. So that was something I want to share. Siobhan alluded to it, but I will admit I am the receiver of a gift in which that was the culture Ashley helped create, and it's carried on to this day. So even without our presence there, like, they still do it.
That's awesome. Others?
Sure. I'd say when it comes to building trust and credibility with your team, I learned a lot from the leader before me, and it came down to leading with humility and servanthood. Obviously, Jesus is a great example of this. He came to serve and not to be served. But to show that you're not just a leader, but you're also a servant, even though your position is the leader. And the leader before me, she came early. She set everything up. She helped with prepping making sure Pro Presenter was good, even sometimes stacking chairs. And there's a lot now where people are just like, that's not for me. That's not my role. Like, I just have to do a vocal rehearsal or make sure I'm in tune and stuff. But to show as the leader to the rest of the team, no, we're all here to serve, and not just to help lead people and not just to sing songs, but to actually really be a team. And that was a great example for me and the others, just to show, okay, yeah, we're all going to do this, And so we were able to lean into that and to trust our leader. So now I try to do my best with doing that, being the first one there and the last one out, and caring about the little things. That's awesome.
That's incredible, by the way. That's huge. Excellent. Showing up early, leaving late, kind of get rid of that mindset of that's not my job. That's great in the corporate world, right? Or in different roles. But now hear me, I'm not saying become a doormat and work yourself to death and do everything. And that's not what we're talking about. But as leaders, we have to have that servant heart. Hit it the nail right on the head, Mal. That was awesome. Some other experiences. It could be, hey, these are the mistakes I made, or these are the lessons I learned. Jess, you're about to go.
I don't know about mistakes, but with trust, the first thing that comes to mind, credibility, is character. If we are to ask people to share vulnerably and to speak vulnerably, whether in team settings or to really pour their heart out on the stage, we need to do a heart check. And I'll probably talk about this a little bit more later. And if we're inviting other people to do that, and we need to allow them to speak life into us as well, right? Having them trust us, we need to trust them first. We need to trust our team. And so in my context, what we're creating is what trust looks like and safety looks like is I ask my teammates, hey, give me feedback so that I could work on my stuff. And I know and trust that you'll speak it out of love for me, to build me up. And that practice, I think, is creating language, is creating culture, and so that eventually it trickles into the whole team. This is how we demonstrate and model this.
Yeah, it's good. It's real good.
So I like that. I'm a nerd on the low, so just so you know. And we'll have these resources available. But Patrick Laconi, in his book called Don't Judge the Title, it's called Getting Naked. He talks about authenticity and vulnerability, and they're really key into building a relationship with teams. So for me, as leading with my teams, making sure that I'm as real as possible. So if it's a crazy week, I'm like, you know what? Instead of us going through the song, because technically you should have came prepared for worship and whatever, so we're going to shift some things. It's been a rough week. The media was crazy. I know I went through something. Someone texts us, so we're going to spend time in prayer. We're going to speak into each other. One of the things we've done as a team, I did it a while ago when I was really leading the team, was that we had different members speaking to people. So we one night, we'll just have one and just go around the room and you just pour into that person. So I think sometimes, also when you're building a team, sometimes you have to be very understanding the dynamics of what's happening with your team, because people are sending you messages. You need to really be hearing what the Lord is doing, and sometimes you have to shift a rehearsal. So we're not going to rehearse. We're going to just pour in each other, just pray, do something different, and that's important. So we'll just run one song, or just like, you know what, we'll just do that one crazy song we decided to do with all the hits and all the stuff, but that's important as well too.
That's good. That's great. Ashley, here you go.
Thanks. I would say consistency and integrity. So I was a student at Nyack College, and Siobhan was my worship director, coordinator at the time. And I was just this like young, rough Latina from the Bronx. It was, yeah, you can imagine. And vulnerability was whack to me. I was just like, yo, that's whack. Like, I don't trust it. Until that season of my life where my leaders exemplified consistency due to their integrity. And because of that, my armor was able to come off, my metal armor around my heart. And from then on, I was able to just trust who they were. I trusted that because I looked at people like Siobhan or Wanda Walburn, and I said, yo, they're the same people on the stage, off the stage, in meetings, at home. They're the same people who are able to sit with me with love and intentionality, and also speak into me with authority and call out what needs to be called out. So because of their consistency and because of their integrity, I was able to build trust and credibility.
That's awesome. That's great stuff.
Yeah, and then just to jump on that, because the consistency was one of the things I was going to say, is your consistency as a leader, like Ashley said, both on and off the platform is key. But your consistency also with how you speak to your team, how you talk to them, how you engage them, your consistency, and then really closely related this, and I'll share an absolute failure of mine in this, and how I learned this was really, really key is your follow through. The first church that I was a worship pastor at, I had a really key, exceptional volunteer, great leader, wanted more opportunities to lead worship, and just because of our volunteer space, they were running sound a lot, they were doing a lot, because they had the capacity and the ability. I really trusted them in that space, but they had been communicating to me what they had a desire to do, and I gave a lot of, oh yeah, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do that. And they ended up actually leaving, and they communicated why. Hey, I wanted opportunity to do this, and it didn't happen. And I was able to recognize my failure in that and apologize to them and everything. But it taught me such a great lesson about follow through. If I, as a leader, say we're going to do something, plans can totally change. But whoever was in the room when they heard that this is what we're going to do, you've got to make sure that you go into that space and say, we're not able to do that anymore, and here's why. That's good. If you just like leave it, it's like ghosting them, kind of. And that is where trust gets lost. That's good. Because they're like, well, I don't know if I can actually take this person seriously when they say we're going to do something. Or if we're not going to do something. So like now, I'm really actually hesitant to say we're going to do something unless I know I personally have the like resolve to see this through. I know we've got the resources to see this through, or at least give it a really good try, or whatever it is. So it could be really big, like we're going to do once a month worship night for this entire year, like ministry year. Just using that as an example. If we put those on the calendar, like we've got to be serious about, no, we as a team have the resolve, we've got the resources, we're giving our yes to that. And then for whatever reason, if something changes, we can communicate, okay, because of A, B, and C, this has changed. But that has to be communicated. You have to kind of follow through on why you're not going to be able to follow through. So that follow through is so critical because people don't know what's going on in your mind. Like Gabe was joking with me about reading my mind before, but that's like the point. Like when you start just assuming your team knows why something's not going to happen, you're in big trouble. Trust is cultivated when you can say, follow through and say, we're doing this now because we said we were going to do it. A lot of times that surprises people. Oh, we're really doing this? I just, that sounded like a nice idea, but now we've got to figure it out. And then they start freaking out, and people don't want to do it because I thought that was a joke or whatever, But anyway, that follow through becomes so huge.
That's awesome.
I just want to say one more thing. Investing into your team, to your volunteers, being intentional with building relationships, getting to know each and every single one of them. You want to celebrate wins, milestones, and you want to know what's going on in their lives because they're under your care. You are a shepherd to the team that you are leading. And if they're sick, if there's a birthing of a child, if there's a marriage and any of that, you want to be there with them, helping them, celebrating everything that God is doing in their lives because they want to feel valued, not just their talent. So building a culture of encouragement and celebrating and just helping them through the lows.
That's awesome. Great stuff. That leads us to that next kind of a next question. Exactly what Mel just said. People feel valued when they know that you care about them more than their ability to play drums or sing a song or advance the lyrics or operate a camera. When they know that they're valued as a person, that just speaks volumes. It shifts the culture. So similar to what Mel just talked about, can we get some more thoughts from others, maybe even some specifics, but what does it look like to have authentic community, to build relationships and really do life together?
From my church context, I am part of a Chinese American church, and for a long time, our value and our worth was based on what you can do and how much you can do, aka your service and your performance, which clearly led straight to burnout. And it became so hard to recruit people to want to be part of not just worship ministry, but any ministry. And I think that's obvious how unhealthy that is. But that was the culture that we had. And part of it is also an ethnic thing of performance and value there. And so we have been in a place where how do we heal from that? How do we put people first and tell them and communicate, not just verbally, but be like, you matter more than anything that you can do or provide. Because that's how Jesus sees you.
That's good.
And so being on that's some more time together. What that's looked like, how I've led our worship teams is, let's just go have lunch after we did a set together. Let's just be people, not just people who serve. Like, who are you? Get to know them. And our team members range from like youth all the way to young adults to people who are families. And so it's not often that we cross paths in our church, but worship ministry has been a unique space where we get to.
That's great.
And so we get to exchange stories and some questions that I like to ask and challenge our worship leaders to ask our teams is, how's your soul? Now that's not just how are you, but how's your soul? And even getting to that place to know how to answer that question took some coaching and some teaching. But this is what we value. We don't just want to get to know, how is your week? Oh, I'm tired. We really want to know what's behind that and create a language where it's deep intimacy, because that's what worship is. Worship is an expression of deep intimacy with the Father. And what we just get to do, we're just saying, would you just come with us into that?
That's good.
That's what leading worship is, inviting people into the presence of God. So how do we do that in smaller, intimate settings? I think that's key to bringing health for, not just even for our team, but also for me as a worship leader. I cannot bring people or expect them to go where I'm not willing to go. So I become open and I set the tone where I'm like, this is where I'm at, this is how my soul is. This is also what God is showing me as well through the midst of this. And kind of like what Chris was saying, we invite each other to speak life into one another. And I think that's what leadership looks like.
It's amazing. If we could write one thing down, I don't know for those of you taking notes, but just write that question down. How is your soul? That comes right from John Wesley, who, when he instituted small groups a couple hundred years ago, the first question they asked are, how is it with your soul? It goes so much deeper than how are you? Because when somebody says, how are you? Everybody else says, fine, good, okay, whatever. How is your soul? How are things with your soul? And Jess, you nailed it. You have to teach people how to answer that question. But this is huge, huge for building depth within your team, depth of relationships, to make sure that that time, whether it's 5 minutes or you have 5 hours of hangout time, you can actually go really deep with that question. And you don't have to be lifelong friends to answer that question. You can do that right with people you don't even know. Sometimes it's easier to be that honest with people you don't know, but it's so huge for building authenticity within your team. Somebody else I think was about to jump in.
I was just going to say, that's so huge, Jess, what you shared. And I'll be the first one to probably tell you how not to do some of this, in the sense that, so for me, this is where, if you're talking about the idea of authentic community and creating aspects of where you're maintaining and building trust in your team. So what Jess said is so crucial in our teams, and I'm the worst at it, in the sense that I'm one of those guys, because I mentioned earlier about time, that when I'm doing rehearsal, I know that there is value in asking the question of how your soul is, but I give you about 30 seconds to answer that. And if you're not willing to pour out your heart, then we're moving on, because you know what? 9 o'clock at night is coming and we're all tired. So let's go. And so what I found in that situation, in my weakness, because I am a slave, unfortunately, to the clock, and God's dealing with me, so, don't judge, But I've empowered my team to lead those moments and to ask those questions and to lean into the presence of the Lord. And I've learned to shut my big mouth. And because I recognize the value of doing more than just performance, than like the output of worship, which I'm always a part of in production. I'm always about how are we going to achieve this. But like for me, I have recognized the value in asking the soul question, in praying for people. And it's funny because, worship, you can view worship in 2 ways. Like, one, I view worship as an act of service. So like if you're talking about your church, it's a great way to serve. And so that can become very much a do-oriented culture thing. I'm doing worship, I'm doing the act of serving. But what stems naturally as you do these things, as you ask these questions, especially when you're talking about the intimacy with the Lord part, like, that's life. And it really gets hard to pull apart, like, oh, this is just an act of service, but this is an environment of community. And so my challenge to you, if you're like me, is find people like a Jess or whoever's on your team that can say, let me ask that question, let me lean into that, because I think it's such great value to the team.
It's awesome.
Can I just to name what Nick's talking about there is identifying your own strengths and weaknesses as a leader, and then building a structure in your team to still make sure there's health and growth. Like, one of the things when I was a worship pastor that I would do is I knew for me, and maybe this is true for Nick, I won't speak for him, but like, I knew my own limits in terms of what I could handle in different modes. So like, we're here to rehearse right now. This is really all I have the capacity to do, is make sure that you're not playing wrong notes right now and that everything works. But because I knew how I was going to be in those moments, we made sure that the structure of our team had space other times in the week or other times in the month where it was super informal and it was just, how's your soul? What's going on at home? It's good. Hey, that little tiff that happened on the stage when we were rehearsing last week, that's where the follow-through becomes really important. But just to what Nick's saying is, like, whatever your personality is and your teams, you got to structure and build that ministry in such a way that those questions don't get mixed. Maybe you're someone who, like Jess, you can just do that in the flow of a rehearsal and that's totally fine. But you might know yourself to know, well, I can't do that. Don't kick yourself and just say, well, I guess we're not going to do it. Structure it out or empower other people to do that.
That's great. That's huge.
piggybacking off of both of them, I just want to attest to Nick's struggle. We worked together for some time. He was my tech director, and he would yell at me after every Sunday service because he's like, "You went overtime. Look at this. Do you see the red? That was you." And I'm like, "But we were following the Holy Spirit." Follow the Holy Spirit in time. So I'm like, Nick, we have to like compromise here. We gotta like meet in the middle. So what he started to do, and just going like this ties in with what Andrew said. We would pre-plan, like, and I don't know if this is like holy or not. Y'all can judge me. It's fine. But we would schedule time on planning center, and we what would you call it? Like Ashley spirit-led time. Like spirit-led time. You have 5 minutes to do whatever you want to do.
You want to put that in worship.
He's like,
Beginning and middle, whatever.
Nick, I have the mic. So he's like, we have 2 services and people are coming in and out. And it's true. Like, you want to honor that. You want to honor people's time and you want to follow the Spirit. This has nothing to do with community. I just wanted to attest to what he said. All of that to say is, I believe authentic community is rooted in authentic relationship. You have to be able to build relational capital to be able to say, Ashley, you went over time. Like, girl, you were 15 minutes late. And it's because Nick took the time. I remember when he first started working, we first started working together. I thought it was super weird. And I thought it was just a South Jersey thing because we were in New York at the time. And sorry, Nick, I'm confessing this out loud. I love you now. Anyway, we're healing now. You're witnessing it in person. But I thought it was so weird because he's like basically like, I want to be your friend. Like, give me your what is it? The locations. Let's share locations. Let's go to dinner. And I was just like, you're weird, dude. Again, I'm from New York. Everything is weird to me. But I really appreciated that. And in retrospect, I can look back and say Nick was one of the many first people who actually pastored me. Who actually invested in, Ashley, you're more than your gift. You're more than what you can do. I want to build relationship with you. I want to invite you into my family. Because of that, we built relational capital, and we were able to tackle on those deeper, harder things in ministry.
Great stuff, guys. That was awesome.
Love you.
I felt the love. We're going to transition to another activity within this session, and Andrew's going to lead us in that. It'll be a little interactive. I'm looking forward to it. Jotting down just a couple notes, and then I have to make one other announcement, but some things to think through for all of us. Because, again, I think I got my I started leading worship in youth group at 15 years old, so that was 26 years ago. But I started my first vocational worship leader job at 18 on the mission field. So I've been leading for many, many years, over 20 years, right? I'm constantly learning from this group on the stage. I'm constantly learning from other worship pastors, a lot of you that are sitting here today, learning, what I can do different, how I can tweak things. And so just a few things to jot down that are sticking out to me. Make space, intentional space for that team bonding time. It could happen on Sunday mornings in between the 9 and the 11. That's a great time to do it. You can do other things too. You can debrief the set. You can pray. You can tweak keys of songs, but spend time just hanging out. Andrew said it. Don't make rehearsal night the night that you're going to bond, because that's so many other things happening that night. Do monthly team nights. Do worship nights, like so many different things. We just did a Super Bowl party, like 6 weeks ago or whenever the Super Bowl was, 4 weeks ago. So do things, make time for team bonding. A couple people hit on it. Don't relegate the pastoral side to other pastors on your staff with your team. In other words, like if a care request, a pastoral care kind of situation pops up, don't go, well, I'm the worship pastor, the pastoral care guy will catch that. But pastor the people on your team. make time, make space for that. I loved also, which we'll touch on in the next session, shared leadership. Know your limitations, know your weak spots, and structure your team so that you're utilizing other people on your team where that is their strength area. Okay, so a few things to jot down. And then this important announcement, we have saved time intentionally at the end for a Q&A. And so we would love to hear your questions. So as questions pop up, it could be asking us to go a little bit deeper on an idea or a thought or a concept. It could be like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but what about this situation? It could be asking us to share more practically, but save your questions, jot them down. We have time at the end for a Q&A, which will be awesome. Okay. Under the umbrella of healthy leadership, we get now to go to some of the practical relationship stuff. Andrew's leading his church through a series called Emotionally Healthy Discipleship, Spirituality.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Emotionally Healthy Discipleship.
That's the whole, we're doing emotionally healthy relationships right now, but we alternate back and forth. Yeah.
So he's going to lead us in some exercises now about just the practical stuff around having some difficult conversations or conflict resolution, just some healthy relationship stuff. Take it away, man.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what everyone's kind of been saying here, and I think Gabe said it at the very beginning, like as the leader, like you can only lead your people as far as you've been. And that goes for how you're developing relationships on your team and stuff like that. So all of us need to continue to develop skills to relate to our team members in really healthy ways, in ways that build trust and don't put up barriers to trust. Right? And so your words and the way you say things, what you do say, and actually what you don't say, goes a long way in cultivating trust in your team or tearing trust down. And the way you're modeling, speaking, and communicating to people on your team has huge implications for how they begin to speak to one another and to you. So if they see you following through, they're more apt to follow through because they're seeing it modeled, right? And so what we want to do is lead you through a few different skills that you can use as a leader. Super simple things, little sentence stems that you can use that sound super robotic if you've never used anything like this before and sound super uncomfortable but can be so helpful. This comes straight out of, like Gabe mentioned, Pete and Jerry Scazzero's Emotionally Healthy Relationships. We use this at our church. I think Newbridge uses that here. A bunch of your churches may have done this before. But it's so helpful to getting at the root of the problem. So I want to just lead you through two basic skills. So you're going to need to partner up in a minute. Don't do that now, but you're going to need a partner to practice these in a minute. Two basic skills just to warm up, and then I'm going to invite you to practice a slightly harder skill that helps with maybe some conflict that you might be experiencing in your team. I know none of you have conflict now.
Never.
But if you ever have conflict, just in case, these will be helpful. So just a couple really basic skills I want to teach you about here, and they're called appreciation and I notice, I prefer, okay? You have a slide for that? Yeah, perfect. Appreciations. One of the things I am horrible at, and I've learned to get so much better at this, is when I see someone on my team do something helpful, or someone that's like a coworker with me, I try really hard now to not just think, wow, that was awesome. I'm trying to learn to go out of my way to appreciate them, to actually communicate to them and not just say, hey, thanks for doing that. Yeah. That's a lame appreciation, okay? But to actually go out of your way to appreciate someone really well. And a good appreciation, a powerful appreciation, I think has three parts. One, it's that you tell the person really concretely what they did that you appreciated. Not just thanks for doing that. What did they do? Right? Second, how you felt using emotion words. Google a feelings wheel if you don't know how to use emotion words well. Feelings wheel. Don't ever say, I feel like, and then talk about something you're thinking about or believing about. That's not a feeling. Use emotion words. I'm married to a therapist, so this is how it goes. And then the third part of a good appreciation is, why is it important to you that they did what they did? So that goes so far with your team, coworkers. So just by way of demonstration, sorry, Nick, I'm putting you on the spot here. Nick, I just wanted to share with you how much I appreciate you offering to put all of these slides together for the whole day, first of all. You can applaud for that. That's a big deal. None of us had to do those slides. Nick, you just jumped at it and you were like, hey, I'll put together slides. Send me what you have for everyone. And it was so helpful. I felt so excited to be a part of a team where people just take initiative and jump in and they know their skill set. One of the things I really value is working on a collaborative team where you just trust everyone. They all have different skills and expertise and know-how, and they just jump in and say, hey, send me this, I'll take care of that. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciated that. So really, thank you. But and I didn't just that's not like a stock thing. When he texted us that in our group earlier this week, I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And then I was thinking about putting this together, going but I really value that. And I felt so excited to give him that because I didn't have to do it. But also because I know he does a great job with those things and it'll look cohesive and we'll have a really great thing to present. So a really powerful appreciation. So you're gonna practice this in a minute. You could, if you have someone here with you from your church, you could just say something that you appreciate that they've done. Or think of a situation recently that maybe you just thought of and you didn't get to voice it, and you can appreciate them. Say what they did, how you felt about it, and why you value that thing in them. And then the second thing, this can be really helpful if there's this is for small little issues that maybe irk you a little with things on your team, is I notice, I prefer. So just a really simple one. Say you've got a team member who, they leave a coat on the stage with their guitar case or something, and they're setting up in the morning, and then it's just there the whole service on Sunday. Really simple thing. You could be like, why are you so messy? That's a really aggressive way of approaching it. It puts them on the defensive right away, right? So don't use that kind of language. Just say, just be like, hey, Mel, I notice whenever you're on the team, you put your coat in your guitar case and you leave it there for the whole worship set. I'd really prefer if you put that in the green room or in the backstage closet so we can keep the stage clean. Totally different approach, and it diffuses so much tension, and it's putting it in terms of what I appreciate. It's not putting something on Mel as he doesn't care about the team. He's such a jerk. Mel's he might it doesn't think of it, or he's in a rush to make sure he does a really good job. Maybe he's new to the team, and he's so worried about making sure he plays the right notes. He just gets flustered and forgot leaving his case there. So a couple really simple things. So what I want you to do here is we're going to practice appreciation. You're going to get a partner here, and you're going to think of a recent thing with a team member that you really appreciated about them. Make sure you share specifically what they did that you appreciated. How you felt. Use emotion words. You can Google it a feelings wheel if you don't know what emotion words to use to describe how you felt about that. And then finally say underneath that, what is it that you value about that? I thank you so much for doing that. I felt this way about it, and it's because I really have this value of, like I mentioned to Nick, I really value being on a collaborative team where everyone's bringing their expertise together. And so this is maybe odd for some of you and strange, totally normal, but go ahead and pair up. And we're just going to practice the appreciation skill. And then I'm going to pull you back after each of you have had a chance to share. And we're going to have a few minutes to practice the I notice, I prefer before we move on. Everyone clear on that? So think of a situation. It could be with you have the person here and you want to appreciate them, or someone else on the team and you're just going to kind of role play, say, and pretend. So pair up. You're going to have about 5 minutes to do this with each other. So jump right into it. All right. We're going to bring it back together. Do you feel appreciated? None of you, thank God. It's doing its job. Do some of you feel appreciated? That's good. Do you feel like you have a tool to communicate with your team better and with your co-team members? That's great. Listen, this is like Siobhan was just mentioning. This is the motive of this is assuming the best of people on your team, right? The motive of this is we're talking about the I notice, I prefer too. The motive is you want to assume the best of people. So I was using Mel as an example. Mel doesn't leave his guitar case on the stage in real life. But with this next one, you want to assume the best of people. You don't want to assume, Mel, why do you just leave this here? Why don't you ever remember to put this away? Like I said, you can't read Mel's mind. You don't know what's going on there, right? I can't read Mel's mind. So you want to just talk about what you notice in this next skill, okay? So you maybe are thinking of an issue already. We're talking about small issues, not massive conflicts, okay? Talking about the little things like a coat being left somewhere on the stage, or like someone consistently showing up 2 to 3 or 10 minutes late for rehearsal, or 30 minutes late. I don't know. Okay? When you see this happen, it's better to nip it in the bud early. Okay? So think of a small recent issue with your partner, each of you, that you'd prefer to see handled differently or them to do differently on your team. Okay? Put it in terms of your preference. That's really important. Tell them what you noticed. Make it an objective, concrete reality. It's not, I notice you're really messy. That's not an observable, concrete reality. You're assuming something in their motivation, okay? Make it as simple as, Mel, I notice, be specific, you leave your guitar case and your coat on stage. Or, I notice that you are usually 5 to 10 minutes late for when our sound check starts. I would prefer that if you have gear to set up, you arrive a few minutes early so you're ready to start on time. So that language is not, you're always late, it's not accusatory. You're putting it in terms of what's actually concretely happening and then communicating to them your preference, okay? So turn to your partner now and you're gonna practice this for about 5 minutes. Do it, don't just say it once to them. Do it like 2 or 3 times using the same exact sentence and the same issue, just so you can feel really comfortable saying it, all right? I notice, I prefer. Go ahead and do that. All right. All right, let's bring it back together. Let's bring it back together. One comment I just want to make real quick, and then we're going to practice one more skill really quick. Mel and I were just practicing this together. We realized, and I just realized while he was sharing it, he was talking about an issue in rehearsal about how someone was playing a specific musical part. Some of this is really subjective. And so with what we do, right? And so you have to learn and sometimes grow your musical vocabulary in order to be specific enough with the person that you're trying to get them to play differently. So there's a challenge on our part because we can't just say, I noticed like you're playing that part wrong. That's not helpful. I noticed that you are adding an extra chord that is not on the chart. I would prefer that you only play the chords written on this chart. Really, you have to get really specific with your language. So the last thing I want to just explain with this, and we're going to talk about expectations. The I notice I prefer one is really about expectations, okay? Expectations are where like almost all of your conflict lies. You have an idea about how you want things to be, and every single person on your team has a different idea about how things should be. And that's where conflict comes from, okay? So expectations on your part as the leader, this is really important, are only valid. Your expectations are only valid if they are mutually agreed upon with the other. Otherwise, the other person becomes an object, or as Pete Scazzaro puts it in their work, an it. They're not a person. They're just part of the machine, and you don't really care about them. You're like, just do what I say. We're working with people in a volunteer, typically, environment. And so you need to keep that in mind. Expectations are not valid unless they're mutually agreed upon. Okay, what does it mean to have mutually agreed upon expectations? 4 things, really quickly. 1, am I aware of my expectations I have of other people? Am I aware that I don't want them adding extra chords when they're playing this song? I've got to answer that for myself internally first. And I'm getting really angry at them, and I don't know why. Oh, okay. Is that a realistic expectation that they not add chords into the song? Yeah. Is it realistic that they're there for 8 hours on a Saturday before Sunday, every Sunday to prepare? Probably not. So you need to ask, is that a realistic expectation? You might need to get some wisdom. Is this a realistic expectation? Talk to other people. Talk to your team. Hey guys, I'm thinking about this as being a team expectation. I need to hear from you. Get feedback from your team. 3rd, is this a spoken expectation? Have you actually gone to them and said, hey, I notice you are playing these extra chords or these sevenths or these flats, or I notice you're not playing those chords. I want those chords in there. I want this kind of tone or this kind of genre with our music here. Would you be willing to play those, or would you be willing to learn how to play those chords if you don't know? And then finally, is it agreed upon? Does the other person give you their yes, that yes, I will learn how to do that? I'm hearing you say you want me to learn how to play these chords because this is kind of the style and the genre that we want this song to sound like. I'm willing to learn how to play those chords. And when we shape things around expectations, we have real agreement that we can share together. The problem is a lot of us are leading teams where we're not aware of our own expectations, or they're not realistic expectations, or we're not speaking those expectations and getting agreement from our teammates. Or we have expectations. This is what team guidelines are for. But like if you have a team agreement form that they sign, or like a volunteer role description, make those as specific as possible, because those are expectations. And then you can say, hey, this is what we agreed to as a team. I noticed that you're not doing this part of the agreement. Can we have a conversation about this? So those things take a lot of the conflict and the problems out. And one of the things about expectations that's really important is that if we don't meet agreed upon expectations as leaders or as team members, what is it we're doing? Well, make it less nice sounding. There's a real word for it. We're lying. We're not speaking the truth. And when Jesus said true worshipers are those who are going to worship in spirit and in truth, we have these little niggle here, this thing we're not, this unspoken thing over here, we're not following through on our expectation here. We might seem like a bunch of little things, that's not that big a deal, but then we're actually not a truthful team. And as Christians, we need to speak truth. And so I'd like to suggest maybe there's a ceiling sometimes on our encounter with God and our worship, because we kind of just let a lot of these things go and we're not actually living truthfully with each other in our behavior. So this expectation one's really key. We're going to just keep this super brief. You're going to do, where's this next one? I want you to use one of these real quick with someone. Think about a situation where there's an agreed upon expectation already in place. Or you need to say, oh, this is an expectation of mine. I want this to be followed. Here's 4 different options that you can use to try this. Like, hey, I expect, the second one I'm using here, I expect, since we have a team agreement that says we arrive on time for rehearsal, that you will show up. Or you could say, I expect for you to arrive on time to rehearsal because we have a team agreement that you agreed to. Can you agree with that? Are you willing to be on board with that? Really simple conversation. Let people, you can't be afraid of losing teammates, by the way, with this. Let people self-select out or adjust your expectations. Both are appropriate. Hey, I'd like to check out an assumption I've made about you, that you don't show up on time because you don't care about this ministry. Is that true? Give them the opportunity to say, what? No, I love this. Listen, here's what's going on in my life. Communicate those expectations. Hey, I wonder if you'd be willing to add these chords in that are not on the chart. Would you be willing to do that? So go ahead and take one of these sentence stems, maybe slightly bigger conflict issue, turn to your partner, and I just want you to practice in really objective terms. We're just going to take like 2 minutes because we're over time here. And just take a minute and practice one of these sentence stems with the person next to you, okay? Go for it.
I wonder why you came late with coffee and didn't bring me. Are you willing to bring me coffee next time?
How many people are thankful for this session? Took some stuff away. Hopefully you took stuff away from this. Can we give it up for Andrew for leading us in these exercises? I appreciate Andrew and the way, this is serious, and the way you just led us in that it's incredible. Like, your passion for this topic shines. And I've had heartfelt conversations with Andrew where he even has helped redirect me in these areas. So I'm very thankful, Andrew, for how you led this session. This stuff is super practical, and you can implement it immediately. Now, if you've never spoken with your team this way, it might be a little bit of a shock the first time. You're like, I've noticed. Instead of like, why are you late? You know. So maybe ease them into it. But incredible stuff. Here's where we're at. We're don't even worry about the schedule because we're way off the schedule, but that's all right. We'll take a 5-minute break. We have one more session. What we'll do is, out of this next session, we'll roll right into the Q&A. So we'll do one more session. This one actually is shorter than the first 2, but we'll roll right into the Q&A. And we definitely want to save some time at the end for prayer. We technically said we're here till 1, but we kind of only planned content up until about 12:30ish. So we're okay. We definitely will be out of here before 1. I think we'll still be out of here by 12:30, 12:45 at the latest, depending on how long prayer goes, depending on how spiritual you are. I'm just playing. So take a 5-minute break. We'll come back in a few and kick off the next one.